Hey, well, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Collision, the Christmas extravaganza edition of the Collision Live.
The inaugural
the
Christmas
first ever.
collision.
It's Daniel here again, as always, and joined by the Max to my Grinch, the Herbie the Elf to my Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Sam
Oh, boy.
Camp.
Good to be with you, Daniel.
Um,
I'm wearing my festive flannel, as you can
yeah,
see.
we didn't coordinate, but we're both evidently in the full Christmas spirit. 10 days to go until Christmas.
I woke up like this.
Yeah, every day we're celebrating Christmas. But so we're going to get into, in just a moment, just talk a little bit about Christmas and pop culture. Those two things, for better or worse, are very linked. Some would say too much. This pop culture has sort of overshadowed the true meaning of spirit of. People are probably right. But hey, we still love pop culture, and we're going to talk a little bit about kind of movies and music and how, our favorite, what's good, what's not, and how that influences us. But probably before we get there, we probably need to address. Actually, first, before we even get there, I want to share, to get us more in the Christmas spirit, I got my first, well, it's not technically mine, but Christmas present. Amanda, who works the camera for us, for these Collision Lives, gave me this to give to my dog. And if you guys know anything about me, you'll know why this is such a good gift. Let's see if you can see Santa Jaws.
Oh, snap.
It's again, I'm the world's #1 Jaws fan. Amanda's been trying to get me to watch the movie Santa Jaws for a while, unsuccessfully, and will probably continue to be unsuccessful. But I'm excited to let my dog wear this for the next 10 days and beyond. But speaking of movies and big things, so Disney is kind of, they always seem to shake things up. The last little news cycle for pop culture has been very dominated by Warner Brothers and HBO Max, and we talked about that last week. So not to be outdone, not to have people talking about other studios, even if it's negative. Disney had their Investors Day kind of presentation the other day. Usually these things are more like in person, but they streamed it. Again, it's kind of geared more for
That could be done. That could be said for pretty much everything in 2020. It's like,
Yeah.
this is normally in person, but we streamed it this year.
And again, this isn't like it's not supposed to be like a Comic-Con where it's trying to hype up fans necessarily. This is for investors. It's trying to show them, hey, look how much money we're going to make in the next couple of years. Buy stock at Disney. But part of the way they did that was just to showcase an insane lineup. These films and shows are going to be releasing over the span of like 3 years or more. So it's kind of condensed, and it seems like there's so much. But this is like 3 years worth of products. But that said, there were some crazy announcements.
Huge announcements. And just thinking about it, one thing I would say is it's interesting that I don't know that any of the announcements are like original content. I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's all spin-offs.
Yeah, as
or
far as like a new
part of an existing thing. And we've talked about this before, but it's just interesting that like almost all their content, at least the stuff that they're really hyping, it's almost all part of an existing
because I think
universe.
There was maybe some, like I think there was some, I forget what it was called, like a girl with like a superhero squirrel sidekick or something, and I'm assuming that's original. But for the most part, this is Marvel.
Like I said, the stuff that they're hyping.
But again, that's not that's not causing people to buy stock in Disney. Oh, we gotta this is gonna be the next
wait
big
to see
thing.
that superhero squirrel.
They're selling this on Star Wars, on Marvel. Some of their on Pixar. Some of their, and then they're doing a lot of movies based on like the original Disney cartoons.
Like Toy Story's getting like an origin.
Like a weird origin story. Everyone's freaking out. They're not replacing.
I think it's like Zootopia.
Zootopia.
Getting a spin-off.
There's a Cruella, like as in DeVille from Dalmatians, which seems like it's coming like 9 or 5 years too late. Kind of the Disney movie is like a Maleficent kind of spin-off, I guess. Focus on the villain, which doesn't interest me at all.
Well, let me ask you, what of the offerings that have been the smorgasbord of things that Disney has announced, what are you most hyped about, or
so there's a couple
piques your interest the most?
Yeah, if you guys are watching this, let us know what's the one or two things that you guys saw that you're like can't wait for. Several things stood out to me. One is this kind of reminded me. And again, I don't necessarily mean this. I know tons of probably most of you watching will disagree, but it kind of reinforced how kind of checked out I am for the MCU. There's nothing coming from it. I enjoy. I think I've seen every MCU movie, but nothing about these new shows like the Loki show or some of these. The WandaVision I still don't understand, and I've seen like 3 trailers for. None of that excites me. I'm a little worried too that it's, they're kind of marketing like, these are all going to connect to the movies, and at least for me, I already feel it gets hard to keep up with all the movies, and now if you have to watch, all these, constantly streaming shows, so that didn't excite me as much as I think a lot of people are excited about some of these shows. The Star Wars shows obviously are some of the big ones. There's a lot. There's like 10 shows.
It's crazy.
Hey, you liked The Mandalorian? We'll have 10 Mandalorians.
Yeah.
And again, the big question with some of that is like, at what point is it too much? At what point do you just start getting some duds and you kind of lose some of the mystique of these shows where, like everyone, there's a Lando show, there's a Kenobi show, there's these kind of Rangers have their show. Here's this character you saw, now they have a show, and at what point is it too big? But I don't know. Do you think?
Yeah, I mean
is it too much? Is it?
Yeah, I guess
too much candy.
It's to be determined. But I think with Star Wars, and we've said this before on here, is that it's a rich universe to explore, and I think there's a lot of different things you can do, and hopefully, as they explore some of these themes and different characters in Star Wars, that they will be able to just have some really interesting takes on just the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
And so, because I think there's a lot of cool stuff you can do, but then there's also just sort of a lot of like, just throwing bones to the fans.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, isn't that cool?
Yeah, you like that
like,
guy?
Okay.
You saw him in the canteen in the background. Did you want to know that he was actually had all these adventures?
But what about his origin story?
Yeah, and I think one of the things too, because we have Shelby on YouTube says, she says Falcon and the Winter Soldier is the MCU one, which I'm still not crazy or super excited for that. But she also says Obi-Wan Kenobi, which I am excited for, and I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's going to be
Hayden Christensen, who was terrible in the prequels as Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, is coming back. And as someone who hates the prequels, I'm actually excited for that. I think with a better director, more experience, I think they can actually do some cool stuff.
Yeah.
But the thing with that too, is for especially these Star Wars ones, not all of these are marketed or planned as like these 5 seasons that you're gonna follow. Like I think Kenobi's, it's like 8 episodes or so, and then it's done. And like I think the Lando show, it's gonna be like 6 and it's done. So it's not.
Yeah.
It's really like getting an extra supersized movie.
Right. Well, the miniseries I think is yet to be. I mean, I think there's a lot that can be done in like a miniseries that's not slated to be like a 6-season sitcom or something, And so I think having like 6 shows run through, I think there's a lot that you can do with that. It's a slightly different format than a feature film, and it's also slightly different from like a full season, like 2 or 3 seasons, like The Mandalorian. And so I think the format of a miniseries will be pretty interesting for some of these, and so that's exciting. And also, it's just sort of like none of this like, oh well, wait till next season stuff. It's like just tell the story you want to tell with this character, and then just end it.
And it will kind of fill in, like, because I think they announced like season 3 again this Friday is the last, which is crazy, episode of The Mandalorian for season 2. I think season 3 starts on Christmas next year. So there's a whole year without kind of a Star Wars show.
Oh, wow.
So I think some of these like kind of mini-series, like I don't know if any of these new shows will be ready in time to fill that gap. But it's not like you're going to have 10 shows going at once and you're trying to keep track.
Right.
They'll stagger this. So basically there's always an MCU or a Marvel show going. Again, 2 other things that stood out to me that I'm excited for is they did get announcements that Star Wars is still going to be on the big screen. It's not just streaming. They announced 2 movies. One had kind of already been announced, but the surprise one was Patty Jenkins, who's the director of Wonder Woman, who will be, I think, the first. There's been female directors of The Mandalorian, but the first director of a feature film that's a woman is doing a Rogue Squadron film, which is again that's like an old books and games and stuff. If you were back in the day, which were really cool. I don't know if you saw like her announcement kind of video, like
I saw bits of it.
Air Force.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just it seems like one of those movies that's not going to be bogged down with like lore and Skywalkers and expectations. At least my thought for it was, is this just gonna be a cool like Top Gun in space kind of?
Yeah.
They go on an adventure, you're done, it's fun.
Which I think that's the beauty of sort of just exploring the different aspects of the Star Wars universe. Is like you can have these sort of one-offs that aren't really diving into the Jedi stuff, and maybe there are some, but it's not the main feature of the movie, and so it's just kind of a neat sort of like, oh well, but these guys doing this stuff like that's just sort of a total side thing, but it still relates to maybe the overarching
but it's
narrative, but it's not like a
you don't have like a they ruined Ryan Johnson ruined Luke Skywalker. It's I would think separate enough that it's hey, if it's not good, then it's just not good. You just don't watch it. You watch the next one. There's
so
not
I'm
quite that
excited
pressure
about that.
so that, and then maybe the last one, and see if you have anything that stood out, but I don't know if you ever watched Willow, the movie.
I didn't, but I know you're excited about.
I don't know. Amanda, did you watch Willow? No one in this room has watched Willow. Hopefully some of you guys on watching this live or later have watched Willow. It's on Disney Plus, the original movie. This is like I don't know how long ago it was. It was George Lucas and Ron Howard directed it. George Lucas kind of wrote it. It's like an old school fantasy. Walrick Davis, who plays like the main Ewok in the Star Wars when he was a kid, and again he's been in everything. He's been in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
He's been in everything. Is this like it's the kind of movie that doesn't get made now? Like this sort of standalone fantasy. It's not tied into some existing King Arthur or Lord of the Rings. Like, and it's just good. It's fun. It's this old school fantasy fun.
Maybe we'll check that out over the holidays.
Yeah, I think it was actually the first thing when me and my wife subscribed to Disney Plus. It's the first thing I made her watch for the first time. They're making a show for this, which again, this could be terrible. It's been however many years, 20 years, 30 years since this thing original came out. But again, I'm definitely maybe one of the few that's excited for this. Anything that stood up for?
Yeah, I mean, I think mainly the Star Wars is sort of what I was looking at. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And I think, with the MCU stuff, I think it was like the Loki film. Like, I'm a fan of, well, I'm blanking on his name now.
Yeah, what is it?
But Owen Wilson.
Yeah,
he's in the Loki movie, and so I don't know. I think the one thing that the Marvel films have going for them is they have they can be pretty good with the humor. I think. For a lot of their stuff is actually quite funny. Like Guardians of the Galaxy, I think was one of the funniest.
And like the most recent Thor, the Taika Waititi one.
Yeah.
And I feel like the MCU is definitely in a let's just be nuts and crazy about it phase.
Yeah.
They can experiment. They almost have to because they've done so many movies.
Right.
Where you see like the Star Wars shows are all pretty, even if they're like contain stories, they're very tied to what you expect from Star Wars, where it's like MCU is like, let's do some crazy time travel, alternate reality. This is a different genre. And again, like some of that is what turns me off of them, but I think it also is what keeps it fresh for other people. So again, there's a lot. Let us know if you guys, there's definitely a lot. If you're a Disney Plus subscriber, or if you're not, is this enough to convince you to sign up? But another thing that we're both looking forward to, I think, is Christmas.
We are.
If you can't tell, we've been
getting
hyped for Christmas for some time. And one of the Christmas in a lot of ways is, at least in the kind of Western culture, has become dominated by kind of consumerism and pop culture and Santa, and kind of strayed away from the Jesus and nativity side of Christmas. And I think there's obviously discussions to have based on that. But for now, I just thought we could talk about talk about that consumer side, the pop culture side, because there is, that has become, and again, I don't think it's like an either or, well, if you watch Rudolph, then you're not celebrating Jesus' birthday. You can do both. I think you can definitely do both. But one of the things that's sort of part of, I think, a lot of people's Christmas traditions is watching these Christmas movies and Christmas music. So do you have any, like, I don't know what your like growing up or anything, if that was at all what you did, or if you stayed away, or any kind of favorite Christmas movie, or?
Well, we for a while, my family had a tradition of like whatever movie was. Well, I think it probably dates back to like when Narnia was coming out, the remakes of Narnia. We would go Christmas Day, to the movies and see those. And I think we kind of continued that tradition for a while. I don't remember all the movies we'd see, but a lot of times we'd end up, Christmas afternoon after you've done the presents and you've had a lot to eat, and my family would kind of a lot of times end up going to the movies, and it's just kind of a fun thing to do. But leading up into Christmas, I think one of our favorites has always been White Christmas, with Bing Crosby and Rosemary Clooney. I forget all the other actors, but it's a classic.
I don't think I've seen his music is one of the staples that we had growing up, like that.
Yeah.
His Christmas CD is.
But it's a great. I mean, it's a classic Christmas movie, and that's definitely been a top favorite through the years.
Maybe another question for you. What would you say maybe are the 3 reasons why A Muppet Christmas Carol is the best Christmas movie ever made?
That's interesting because I actually haven't seen that one.
Ooh. Again, that's one of my favorites. I'm a Muppet guy.
Something else I'll have to rectify over the holidays.
I don't know if I put that in my LinkedIn bio tagline. I'm a Muppet guy. But yeah, I love the Muppets.
Which I do. I mean, I've seen a lot of the other Muppet stuff, but I don't think I've seen that one. And so, yeah, I'm sure I'll like it.
And A Christmas Carol is maybe my favorite story ever. I love that story. I love Dickens. There's obviously a million versions of that, like adaptations. But the Muppets capture the spirit of it more than some. Again, it has Caine. What's the actor's name?
Michael Caine.
Michael Caine as Scrooge. And again, he plays it like a very straight, even though he's with Muppets. He's a very sophisticated kind of Shakespearean actor, and he's playing with a bunch of Muppets. But
I'm gonna have to watch.
So that's one we've been right now. Me and my family, we've been watching almost every night. After dinner, we've been watching like Frosty. We watch the old like 60s Rudolph. We watch the real life Grinch. We'll probably watch the cartoon one coming up. Frosty Return. We kind of watch, but I've been saving Muppet Christmas Carol until kind of closer to Christmas to keep them waiting.
Is that on Disney Plus?
Yeah, well, I'm sure. Of course, I own the the Blu-ray of it, but yeah, I'm sure that's on. Again, with Winnie the Pooh Christmas, there's a bunch of these. What is it about Christmas? Is it just pure nostalgia? Is it?
I think so. I think it's mostly nostalgia. I would think. I think that's why. Like, even if you're not like actively watching a Christmas movie, I think there's something about just having some sort of Christmas themed movie or show on in the background. If you're like wrapping presents or doing housework or whatever, like you're just at home with a Christmas movie going, I think it just sort of like helps you get in the spirit of Christmas. And I think a lot of that has to do with nostalgia, and also just the themes of Christmas come out in that, and so it just kind of helps orient yourself to Christmas, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a as far as sort of that, like the tension between the real true meaning of Christmas and the birth of Christ and the gospel story, and then like the Santa Claus is coming to town with presents, sort of the tension between that. I think sometimes I think gets lost in some of that discussion is like what people would call the spirit of Christmas is a very Christian based idea, like the giving, the love, all those sort of elements that we associate with like, the good ones with like Christmas. Maybe not the like jingle all the way, going to the store and beating up people for a Turbo Man, but like the positive
one of the great Christmas
another one
movies.
of the all-time greats. Haven't shown my boys that one yet, but I think that is very kind of Christian even if it's not necessarily just telling the wise men, shepherds and story.
Well, most of them, and like Christmas Carol is one of the most obvious ones of sort of the true meaning of Christmas. But most of the Christmas movies have some sort of center around the Christian idea of Christmas and those themes that it's not just all about trying to get presents and all that kind of stuff. But most Christmas movies are gonna sort of in some way be in the orbit of the true meaning of Christmas. Let's say, not necessarily the birth of Christ, but, giving more, realizing what's important in life. Some of these themes are going to be typically in most Christmas movies.
Yeah, and that's why I think, we're both parents, as I don't think it's like a substitute for the gospel, that part of Christmas, but I think it is a good, like side part. It adds to and kind of helps them, helps kids and people
Yeah.
focus on the right things. Like in addition to also.
Yeah, I don't think it takes away from Christmas
Yeah.
by any means. Like learning to be appreciative for what you have
Yeah,
and
or,
give to
the
others
Grinch
or whatever.
growing his heart, and it's not about ribbons, packages, boxes, and tags, and all that.
Yeah.
There is more to it. Music too, because that's another sort of nostalgic thing. Because I was thinking this the other day because we were listening to asking Alexa to play holiday classics, and almost anytime there's like a song that comes on that was written like after 1990 or something, we skip it. Like it's almost like there's like a closed canon of Christmas songs.
Yeah.
Which maybe like Mariah Carey's "All I Want for Christmas Is You" is maybe the most recent one that kind of managed to become like a staple of Christmas. But for the most part, like it's all.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, do you think there's a reason for that? Why the current pop stars maybe have like they sing the carols and they do Christmas albums, but as far as like an original Christmas song kind of making its way into the rotation, it seems like you just don't get that anymore.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know what that is. Like I don't know why and maybe I'm just unplugged from the Christmas music scene, but
How dare you?
it doesn't seem like there's a lot of like newer Christmas songs that are sort of part of the canon of everybody plays this song around Christmas. Like maybe there just hasn't been enough time for that, like for pop culture to sort of figure out, oh, this one from the mid 2000s is actually a classic. And
Yeah, I don't know if maybe I just like wait until it's far enough back to be nostalgic for people,
but it's any Christmas album, it's gonna just be a rehashing of
the old
classic Christmas songs, and typically probably not as good as the originals. But
well, speaking of, if we're not able to talk about that now, I don't know when we're gonna get a chance to step on this soapbox. But speaking of not being as good as the originals, I've touched on this before, and I won't go off on it. But what is your opinion on adding to or changing traditional Christmas carols, say in church or on the radio, and like adding kind of cool new like refrains in the chorus or like?
Well,
and why is it a sin?
Yeah, well, I'd say it's a sin because it's adding to what was already perfect, and so you've taken something that was great and made it lesser.
Yeah, because I'm of the same opinion that like singing the national anthems, you should just stick to the melody because it's a perfect melody. You don't need to like add runs or change the tune. You sing it like it is, and you kind of belt it out. That's kind of how I feel about Christmas music. Like you don't need, if you're singing Silent Night, you don't need it to add some chorus about to try and make it more Christian or to like hark the herald angels sing. You don't need to like add to what the angels are singing. Like just give it to me straight.
Yeah. Well, if you're watching it now or later, why don't you chime in on this? If let us know if you like the Christmas carols, the greats, like they were intended, or
like God intended from His original plan,
or are you a fan of some sort of meddling of the originals songs and melodies? So we'd love to hear what you have to say.
Meddling is a nicer word than maybe I would use. But any other thoughts of some sort of Christmas traditions and Christmas, like kind of this connection between sort of this cultural tradition side of Christmas? And
well, I think we maybe talked about it last week some, but like there's just something powerful and necessary and good about having like annual traditions. And I think, Christmas falls into that. And even let's take away the Christian aspect of it for a moment and just say that having these traditions around family, around giving, around, reflecting back on the year, I'm sure most of us probably don't want to reflect back on 2020, so we're just happy to see that in the rearview mirror. But most years, you just look back, see what's happened, what have you accomplished, what have you not accomplished, and as you look to the new year, it's just sort of this time for reflecting, and you have traditions that may just be as simple as decorating homemade cookies or, wrapping presents together or whatever it is, decorating a tree. I just think there's something really good about that, to take time each year to do these things and to have traditions. I think traditions
and I think
are more than just some old hat thing.
Yeah, and sometimes people, there's sort of that stereotype of the pastor that's calling out his hey, nice to have some of you Christmas and Easter only people that visitors. Like there is a lot of people that don't go to church throughout the year, aren't engaged in kind of Christian activity or the relationship, and that do go, on Christmas. That still kind of is like a lingering cultural thing.
Yeah.
And I think obviously we would hope that they would kind of get connected and plugged in, the whole year. But I don't think we should diminish the fact that I think the Christmas, the traditions and kind of the spirit of Christmas does kind of convict people to that there is some connection still to Jesus and that they want to attend, and it does bring them closer than maybe they are through most of the rest of the year.
And I'd say it's probably one of the only things left in pop culture that, Christians have some sort of say in, I guess you could say. Like it's, they've sort of either removed themselves from or been removed from a lot of other aspects of pop culture. But I feel like Christmas is still very strongly rooted in Christianity. And I think how we steward that relationship with the rest of society is also going to be important, so not to alienate people or bash them for like showing up to your Christmas Eve service or what have you. And so I think it can be a great opportunity, more broadly speaking, to engage with your community around this holiday.
Cause even a lot of these very secular musicians and stuff they're still singing these classic things about a baby born in the manger, and there is that connection to that entryway or doorway to have those conversations with. So again, you got 10 more days for you guys to check out Muppet Christmas Carol and any other of the Christmas traditions. This week at the Collision, again, we're in a lot of ways we're not shutting things down. We're slowing down kind of over the Christmas break. But we will have some stuff coming out. Like we have Dante, who's done a bunch of reviews for us for our website. He's been on camera for some video reviews before. He just saw and wrote a review for The Mank. This is the movies on Netflix about the making of Citizen Kane by David Fincher. It's kind of been a movie that's been kind of getting some buzz. Maybe not as widespread in its appeal, a little more like kind of deep dive cinema. But again, so we'll have that review probably out tomorrow. So if you guys have seen the movie or you're curious about it, keep your eye open for that. And we'll probably have some other reviews and things popping up again, like Wonder Woman and some of those movies that's coming out on Christmas Day. So we'll be doing a review for that as well. But cultural, anything you've observed or saw in culture that we haven't touched on?
I feel like I had something, but then forgot what it was.
Oh, well, I have.
Maybe you have something.
Yeah, I do have one that again I was talking about this with the crew before we went live, but my kind of sense of reality and truth was shattered yesterday. I discovered that Pete, as in Goofy, a Goofy movie, his next door neighbor, his kind of arch nemesis. I found out yesterday that he is not a dog, and this has caused me to question a lot of my beliefs. Going to reevaluate that he's a cat. Apparently, he used to be a bear, and then he became a cat. Again, if you can't recall who he is, Google him. He definitely looks like a dog. Again, he's neighbors with a dog, kind of in this little dog world. Again, it always bugs my wife that that Goofy owns a dog, and there's some ethical problems with that. But again, Pete he's a cat, and that bothers me. I'm gonna probably spend a lot of my Christmas thinking through that,
pondering
the
everything that you've ever believed in. Well, I remembered what it was, and it was the release of Cyberpunk 2077, which is a role-playing game that was released last week. Too much, I think, angst over those who got it and are finding out there's a lot of bugs and problems with the gameplay, which I could care less about. But I think the thing that's interesting, and I've watched a little bit of it, or just people play it, and I think what's interesting is just this. It seems to be very much a blending of reality for those who play it, because you can very deeply customize the character that you are. You can decide how you respond to interactions in the game, and you can be true to yourself in the game, or you can maybe go a different route. And so I just thought it was interesting, just the extreme amount of buzz that this game has created, and it's been delayed for however long, and So it's finally come out, but it's one of these, and we've talked about this before. It's just how video games are such an important influence on pop culture, and then with this game, it just seems to be even more a blending of like cinema, but also this role playing aspect of it. It's not in VR or anything, but I feel like it. I mean, it's it's
Like
been
the
talked about
immersion and
how
stuff,
yeah
yeah,
the
it-
immersion of it and just how good it is and how many options you have to one express yourself in the game, but also just the paths that you take through it. And that's not necessarily new to video games or role playing games, but it's just interesting that
and just even just the graphics, like the more,
yeah
like the PlayStation 5, the new Xbox coming out, or maybe it has come out, but as that gets more and more like kind of photorealistic and
yeah
lifelike, the immersion part just becomes more and more, if you're like playing Doom 64 and you're blowing up aliens and there's these little splatters of blood or something, that's different than if you're playing a game that it looks like real people.
yeah
Just that immersion. So again, yeah, that's, I don't know if some of you guys have been able to get your hands on the PlayStation 5. I'm now solely a Nintendo guy.
I stopped at the original Xbox. 'Cause,
Yeah,
you know.
we're more vintage, but let us know. But hey, guys, thanks to you. Hope you guys have a again. So that we won't have we're not going to have a collision live next week. We'll pick it up after Christmas and the New Year. Again, we got a lot of cool stuff coming up next year. A lot of big plans.
Yeah.
New studio space, new things we're going to be doing and launching. So thanks, guys, for checking us out. Kind of following us on this part of the journey. Hope you guys will follow us into the next year. Hopefully, 2021 is it's a better year for all of us. But again, thanks for watching. Have a great Christmas. Hopefully Santa brings you some good stuff, not coal. And remember, try and keep the true meaning of the season in mind as we go throughout this year. So thanks for joining us. Continue to collide with your world for Christ.